Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 10th of August, year 2022. And I think it's a special period. When we talk to April, we can ask her uh, what the special period is. The other part to it is 12th of August is going to be full moon. So also people who are highly affected by the moon cycles, the tides rise, the tides um, ebb and flow along with the magnetic attraction of the full moon. The same thing, people may get mentally affected. So it's a good time to do a lot of meditation. So let me introduce our panel. Welcoming April back. Good evening, April. April is a psychic and has quite a few modalities of healing under her. Good evening, April. And then we have Michelle with us. Good evening, Michelle, who is part of our core group of meditators, and Patricia. And hopefully, good evening. And I'm hoping the others will join. I will bring up a question that I've been saving. Here it says, in case of a disagreement with someone, if you try to communicate and fix things, are you in the mental? And the ego is manifesting. I had very kind intentions when I opened communication, but it has been badly interpreted. So should I not try to fix things and accept the disharmony of the present moment? Can communication not be led by ego and mental? When making decisions, how can you tell the difference between lower self-fear and higher self-guidance? If you want to take that, April. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna break this down. In the case of a disagreement with someone, of course, this is going to depend on context. There are some conversations out there that, of course, it's okay to just let it go. You just let it go, let the person have their opinion. And even if they're upset with you, you just let it go because it's not going to help to try to solve it. You also, so this isn't necessarily a judgment. It kind of seems as though it's a judgment, but when you get in touch with consciousness and when you start to become self-aware and you start to notice your own ego that arises, you can then start to notice it in others. And it's not necessarily that you're noticing it as, oh, you're judging, like, oh, you have a bigger ego than me, but you are just sensitive to that. You're sensitive to being able to notice when a person is coming from ego. And if it's a situation where they're coming from ego, the pain body has been, woke up, and it just won't, there's no benefit to trying to communicate or trying to fix it, then you just leave it. But you must just leave it. You don't leave it, walk away, and then allow it to play over in your mind. And you replay the communication, you replay the scenario, and it bothers you. If you're going to do that, you just leave it and you walk away. And then it says, but in this scenario, it says that, are you in the mental if you want to fix it? Well, that's a tricky question because you could be, and the ego is arising. So it depends on, are you trying to people please? Are you trying to make sure the person still likes you? Are you being true to yourself and to your connection? So all of these things have to be sensed or felt. If you feel like you're defending yourself and you feel your pain body arising, then I would step away from the conversation. So I wanted to say that first because this is quite long and has many parts. My eyes are getting worse. I have to wear my glasses now. All right, so I had very kind intentions when open communication, but badly interpreted. If it's badly interpreted, then you are dealing with somebody else's pain body that's arising. That's the pain body. They're not, most people, especially when I work with like couples, I have to go through this process of, you have to learn to listen to the actual words being said without trying to form your answer first. So most people listen, but the words are coming into the brain, and the brain is a processor, so it can do this quite quickly, but they're not actually listening because they're already trying to come up with their answer. Their pain body, their ego is already trying to come up with the answer, right? And there's this thing out there where we always try to find the most socially acceptable excuse. And that's kind of what we're always working at. So like, I had this scenario with a couple of my friends who they were separating for their husbands, and instantly it was, well, that's because they found somebody else. And when that person tells the story and they hear that, well, they found somebody else. Oh, I understand why you're upset. That's the most socially acceptable answer. So that's just a little example of what the most socially acceptable answer is. So, should I not try to fix things and accept disharmony? Yes. Can communication not be? It can be not led by ego. So I already addressed the next two questions. When you do what Eckhart is like, his biggest message is don't be attached. That's Eckhart's biggest message. If you are not attached to the outcome and you are communicating without your ego, without your pain body, and you're communicating while you're connected with source, with your best intention, then you can communicate without ego. And I would accept the disharmony and let it go. When making decisions, how can you tell the difference between lower self-fear and higher self-guidance? So lower self-fear involves the mind. The higher self-guidance is a knowing. So I don't know if most people who listen to this page are aware of the Heart Math Institute, where they came out with their research that the heart is actually more magnetic than the brain and has more brain cells in it than the brain. So your heart actually knows first. So higher self-guidance is more like an instant knowing. If it's the brain's going to ask questions. It's going to double check. It's going to think twice. Higher self doesn't do that. Higher self just knows because it's coming from your true self, your source, with a sense of knowing. And it's like, what is the word I'm looking for? It's a sense of knowing, and I want to say, I'm missing the word. I want to say like
intuition
faith.
or gut, like a gut,
Confidence.
knowing it in your gut.
It's confidence.
It's
Right?
more like a sense of peace, right? Like
And it is a sense of peace, yes. So I will do that. Like if one of the things that I will do is if I'm trying to make a decision and it's a little bit of a hard decision, if I am going back and forth like that, to me, that's my cue. Like you should not be going back and forth. You should not be wrestling with this so much. And then one of the other things that I will do is I will ask the question before I go to bed. And either within the next day or so, the answer will just come to me. So a lot of times we need patience to get these answers. So if you have a disagreement with somebody, should I fix it? If you don't instantly know what your heart is telling you to do, not your brain, because your brain wants to fix it. It wants to look good in the right light. It wants you to feel good. It wants, we're going to go around and put band-aids on everything. But so the answer will just come to you if you just wait, if you have that patience to listen to the guidance. There's many times that I've done this at night where I have asked myself before I went to bed, and I have literally woke up in the middle of the night. One time I woke up a little and I heard like this screaming no. And I was like, okay, I got it. I'm going to go back to bed now. Please, I got it. Because, so this is the spiritual answer. Now, we have a human body here, so we have to deal with this human body. The human brain does not like open loops. Okay, so when you pose a question, this is what anxiety does. You pose a question, and if it's something that's in the future or something unknown, the brain runs around the track. No answer. Makes another scenario, runs on another scenario, goes around the track, another scenario goes around the track. This is anxiety. It's an open loop because you are imagining a fake scenario or a future scenario. So it likes to close the loop. It likes to find the answer. So when you pose the question before you go to bed, it's like typing in Google search. It'll search for the answer. But you're sleeping, so you've shut the brain part down so you can get to your inner self, your higher self, easier to get the answer. Does that all make sense?
April, is this when there's a very popular saying, people like telling like just sleep on it. If they have a problem, they said just sleep on it. Don't make a decision now, just sleep on it. Is that where it came from?
Yeah, that is. And also remember, and ego, Eckhart mentions this a lot, that the more, like in this question, the more emotion you have with something, okay, the more you're taking it personal, the more you're working off the pain body. You can't get a rational answer then. So what I make myself do, so it's not like I don't get upset just because I'm a counselor or a spiritual teacher or whatever. I have emotions. There are times when I get upset. The more upset I am, the more I make myself wait. The more I stay with the emotion, I let it be. I don't like it. I let it be. I acknowledge it. I know the key is I know it's going to go away at some point, and then I wait, because I wait for that emotion to subside so I can get to my true heart, my true space. I can't get there with my emotion high because it keeps me up in my brain.
I liked your response that we could be attached to our opinion, that there's an attachment, that she's fixated on her opinion that this communication should be fixed, that I need to communicate to the other person and this situation should be fixed. She or he, I don't know who asked this question, right? That there's an attachment to their opinion.
Well, it's again, like, we personally don't like to feel bad. There's also a little bit of hint of a people pleasing here, and it also could be a peacemaker. So we don't want any disharmony, and I get that. I also don't like disharmony. However, there are certain times where you need to step back and you need to go in first before you go back to try to fix it. And some things are just better just to let it be and let it reside that way, because that person is not in the space to receive the communication. They said, my intentions were good. However, if they took it badly, that means that that person's not ready to receive.
The other part that I wanted to point out, this is something that we discussed on Sunday to April, when she says she or he says, this questioner says, I had very kind intentions when I opened communication, but it has been badly interpreted. the moment our communication is badly interpreted, yeah, we may be saying the words correctly, but vibrationally, we have some, in our vibrational frequency, we have some negativity about it. Like we are angry about it, or because the other is responding. The bad interpretation is because they're responding to our vibrational energy. It's not the words, right? Every response, like, yes, like you said, they may have a pain body, and that may be activating our vibrational frequency of that we need to that. So it almost is like when they are trying to correct the situation, they're putting the other person as being wrong. Maybe they have that vibrational frequency,
They
right?
could,
And
yeah.
in that vibrational frequency, the other's pain body is getting egged on, and that's why there's a bad interpretation. So we have to remember, how much ever we say, oh, I was speaking with loving kindness, and I was speaking with kind intentions. Your intentions word wise may be kind, but doesn't mean that the other, even animals, respond to your vibrational frequency, not the words that you're saying. So when a dog is barking at you violently, that means he's experiencing your violent energy, and that's why he or she, the dog, is barking at you. So that's one of the things that I picked up here. Do you think
It could
that's
be.
correct?
It could be. It depends on the situation. I think that's very, very viable. Um, but I was looking like in my life, and there are times where I truly had good intentions and somebody took it wrong. So, but I do think that is energy actually communicates first,
Mhm.
before the words and before the action. The energy hits your energy field way before it hits your brain. Right? It hits all the layers of the aura as it's coming in. It
Mhm.
hits that way before any words are said or any actions are said. So, and it even could be like you communicated okay to that person, but you had a bad morning, so you had this bad energy. So you really didn't mean to say something wrong. However, your whole morning was chaotic and you still had that chaotic energy. It could be something like that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, can communication not be led by ego and mental? Uh, I don't know what they meant by that. Can communication not be led by ego and mental? I have a feeling if the other person was responding with bad interpretation, that then we were in our mental. We were not coming from a space of, because I feel like if Eckhart were to ask somebody to, Eckhart would correct somebody out of his presence, the other would accept it. When we correct somebody out of presence, they accept it. They at least listen to what we have to say. There won't be any bad interpretation. So it may be that this communication was led by ego. That's why there was disharmony. You agree?
Yeah. Yeah. And the words here, can communication not be led by ego? So they're saying, they're asking if communication can happen without ego, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And it can. It absolutely can. However, your intentions has to be that you are not attached to the outcome of the conversation and that you do not want anything from the communication,
perfect.
right?
You're incredible. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Michelle, did you want to add to what April said?
Yeah, April, totally resonated with your response. Yeah, I've made it more and more a practice in business or personally. Whenever there seems to be a difference of opinion or a disagreement, I wait. Because the conditioned egoic response will be that little feeling in the gut, that discomfort. And I never want to respond from that space. So I give it either the end of the day or the next day, when the emotions in both myself or the other person is still heightened, and so it gives it a time to kind of level off. But I do believe that we can all communicate, obviously depending on your level of presence, from that space, from that wanting to be heard, right? Oprah Winfrey always says, what's the biggest thing everybody wants? They want to be heard, right? And we can communicate that in a very authentic way, and present our point of view, our opinion, without necessarily having the other person have to agree with us. So we're not attached to that outcome of, I want to convince you that my opinion or the way I see things is right, because we all come into any situation from our own perspective. So, you can want to clear the air and just state your opinion, and then give space for that person to respond, and let them speak without interruption, right? Respect that space for them to be able to hold their view as well. And then, what's that saying? Let's just agree to disagree, right? Respectfully. I mean, unfortunately, I think in today's day and age, we've lost a lot of that civil discourse, right? Where we can have a debate, or we can talk about things. And, sometimes they'll bring up a point of view, and you can validate. I think that's important too. I can see how you see it that way. I mean, I've always heard, when you communicate effectively, you never point the finger. You make me feel this way. You're pointing, it's your responsibility, right? It's like, this is how I see it, or this is how I'm interpreting it, because every time you say you, it's kind of like they're going to be in a defensive position. So sometimes we think we have very kind intentions, but our body, like you say, the energy, which then is infused through our body language or our facial expressions, which is, what people read, right? Very subliminally, but it has a very strong message attached to it. So I think sometimes that also gets in the way, even though we think we have good intentions. Maybe we're still reeling in that emotion, and in the pain body that was triggered. But I definitely think that communication can be from presence. I mean, that's been my experience, and where I'm at, I try to go in that space. And then when making decisions, how do you tell the difference between lower self-fear and higher self-guidance? Yeah, for me, it's like a gut knowing. It's like a resonance that I feel in my body, versus that attachment to wanting to be right, or, for that person to do what I want them to do. Like, yeah, when I can let it go and let it be, like the song says, then I'm good, but yeah, I think when you feel like yuck, and like inside, you just have to get to know your own state and be present enough to say, what am I feeling now? And sometimes that might be hard in the middle of a discussion, and maybe later, you need that time and space to be able to see where you were actually coming from, and not take it as a bad thing. If some ego, if you said something, maybe you didn't realize you said something that was from the ego, and even though you think you had good intentions. So we're always a work in progress, so every day we just try to do it a little bit better, be a little bit more present. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for that practical example of how you would say that this is how I feel. this is how you're making me feel. And that's how you would communicate, right? So
Yeah, I try to stay away from
blaming.
blaming the other person. You did this, and that's what, this is,
Mhm.
so always taking responsibility for the emotion that I'm feeling.
Right.
Without trying to remember, when you point a finger, right, the three fingers always pointing back at you, right? So I always use that as a gauge, right? So, but I think for me, yeah, communication language is so important. And even where I was working in my nonprofit, that was a big thing, the active listening, so that people are
Right.
knowing that they're being heard, and then kind of saying, well, this is what I'm hearing from you, and kind of reiterating what they're saying, so they know that they're being heard. And that alone can diffuse a lot, because they're saying, okay, she's validating what I'm, right, she's
Beautiful.
listening, she's really present for me. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you. Patricia, did you want to add something to what April and Michelle said?
Maybe something a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Thank you,
April.
Michelle.
Oh my goodness, I love every single of April's pieces of response. And Michelle, I actually wrote down, I mean, I've learned this. I can't tell you how many times about art of communicating. At school, on different courses, on my own, different books, even the recent books, Art of Communicating by Thich Nhat Hanh, I was reading. Nonviolent communication also, but Marshall, sorry, I forgot the author. But still, every one of us needs a reminder, because if we're not completely and absolutely present in that moment, the ego creeps up. It does, because you have in mind the sense of duality. This is or the difference between me and the other. So if we see the other doing something that we don't like or makes us uncomfortable or something, we want to fix it. It's just right. We want to make them like us, because then it's not so uncomfortable. Or out of the love in our heart, if we are peaceful and we see them freaking out over something, out of love, we want to just like, listen, that's crazy what you're doing. There's another way. But saying it in that moment might not be the right timing, I guess. So that's, if I know that maybe the other person's energy is disturbing my peace and I'm feeling like I need to fix it, that's for me time to not to fix it. Because that's coming instead of complete acceptance, and just as an offering, give the other person the presence power, be that space in which they going through that emotion and letting it wash through it. And maybe instead of saying to them and judging them in that moment, you're wrong, I'll fix it, just listen to me. And yeah, that happens, like April said, it happens many times, and you, Poonam, too, on the vibrational level. So our mind can be on that high horse, but then they disturbed already something inside, and we're not connected to it. For some reason, we lost the connection. So then our beautiful words that want to come out and fix, because we have good intentions. We might have a good intention, but it's on our head. But we need to listen to the heart. And if there is this disturbance in the field here, I would just sit with that disturbance. Don't worry about the other person. Worry here. Worry, I mean, not worry, just maybe focus on, pay attention what's here, because once this is healed, because there is an information here. So once this is healed, then I do believe that the rest will take care of itself. And I think that Eckhart many times said that if you're present in that moment when this situation happens, if you're completely present, you either accept it, you will change it, or will leave the situation, but it's gonna come out with the power of the presence. They're not gonna be ego, the manipulation, trying to be less on more than the other person, on judging and attachment. It's such incredible quality of we can offer to the other person once we present. And the question, if how do we know when making decisions? That was my question a lot of times. And I do believe a lot of people that start or even continue for some time their spiritual journey, and practicing being present more and more, catching yourself, ego, attachments, and releasing the limiting beliefs, all of this. Yes, but still, how do I know in that moment? And I think April said it very rightly here, that you are attached to your heart, you are attached here, and your energy is not disturbed. It's coming from the peace and love. And then the other person is also reading it that way. So there will be no conflict. And Poonam, you mentioned it too. It's like, and we offering the truth that it's not our truth, it's the truth that's from connection to the source, from that oneness and love and peace. The other person cannot help but hear it, because they're hearing it on a different level maybe. Yeah, they might still have that little, vibration of the blah, 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 but it will just subside because there's nothing to fight. They have nothing to fight. It just kind of dissolves in our light of consciousness. So if this situation still exists, I would look in myself. It's like, okay, thank you. And say it either directly to the other person or to yourself. It's like, thank you so much for your vulnerability, for, expressing what you're feeling. I'm feeling something too. Let me just, sleep on it. Sit with it. Just, let's meet tomorrow. And I actually had the very similar situation yesterday at work. Great intention. I just went to communicate it with my colleague about something, some kind of task she sent me, and it wasn't really needed. It's like I didn't understand. So I want to say, it's not needed for this one. This is the task. So I describe it. She just jumped at me. She's saying, this is my job. I have to do this. It's like, and having the other week, very similar experience, in that moment, sitting, it's like, why is it still this coming out on me? But I stand with it. I let her speak. And then I tried again, say it wasn't my intention. This is what I saw. But if you like me to do that, there was at this moment, no matter what I said, it was just riling her up. So I said, let's talk maybe tomorrow. Again, she said, I'm not talking to you. I'm going to talk to Kenny, which is the boss. Like, so I just had to, just shut up. But it wasn't like, okay, no, I'm going to show you. We're going to tell, like, no. Nothing threatening, just understanding, seeing it, that it's not about me. She was going through something and it just came out. And my job is to hold the presence. And then she left. Well, this morning, I was thinking about. So I was not able to put it away, but it wasn't that mental noise, like trying to argue both cases. I just like, thank you. How can I help, be of help in this situation? And then it came to me, and it actually came to me through Rumi's poem, because she actually also reads Rumi's poetry. So I knew that I have something to kind of meet on, some common ground. And I got that poem. It's just like 2 lines. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, in between right and wrong, there is field. I'll meet you there. Or maybe that was just my interpret, but it was something, I didn't even find it. I just had it in my head. So I brought it for her this morning, and her first response, like, I don't understand it. And I said, it's about communication. So, it wasn't about who's right and wrong. I would just like, she just completely was open, and we had like, those 2-3 minutes to clear the air, and everything was fine. So, but I was so grateful for her that she showed me that I can do it differently, because in the past, I was right there. I was that called right fighter. I know better. This is what I do. I had to completely explain myself, why I did it, never admit that I did something wrong. I mean, it was such a change. And I loved her for showing me this, even though it cost her. I know she was crazy thinking about this, because she was walking out of the office all, shaking, accusing me that I'm yelling. And even people that witnessed, few people was still in the office, like, what was that? It's like, I wasn't talking, she was yelling and accusing me of yelling. So it was obvious that, but I was very grateful, and all I could feel towards her afterwards, and even this morning, is just the gratitude that I had an opportunity to act differently, and it made all the difference. So yes, I think that there is a possibility of communication without ego, but you just have to feel it in you. Don't worry about the other person, what space they're on. Just be, in touch and aligned with your source. And then the communication will just happen naturally.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. So before I hand it over to Francesca, April, if you can, I'm hoping Michelle is still listening. There she is. So can you explain this Lionsgate portal, if you have something on it? And then I know Francesca also has been posting about it, so she may have some details as well. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So disclaimer, not astrologist. I'm not a numerologist. Not my thing. I have dabbled in both. I'm aware of both, but they're definitely not my specialties. But the Lionsgate is, so the key thing to know about the Lionsgate is it is when the star of Sirius appears. The star, if you want to call it a planet, but it's really the star of Sirius. And it's extremely powerful. And also, I don't know if many people know, but when we think of the central sun, that's what we're thinking of, is Sirius. So we have our sun, and then beyond that, our central sun, which when I do a lot of meditations, especially when I want to do expanding my energy, or I want to teach people to expand their energy, I will take them past our universe, past our sun, and we'll go straight to the central sun, the source. Okay. So when it appears, we have this lion's gate, and that's why it's so powerful. It is now it is different times of the year according to where you are on the planet. So that's a key thing. So everybody thinks that it's just 8-8. Well, it's 8-8 for us, but it actually the Sirius arising is at different times. But it is a very powerful portal. It is a time for basically bringing to you what you want to bring to you in the next year. So it's a bigger time for intention than like everybody puts their intention out at the beginning of the year in January, right? We're going to lose weight. We're going to do this. This is the time to do it. But you want to go a little bigger with this, and you want to go more spiritual with this. So your intentions would be, so what I have found across the board is that most people who are on this path and then make this statement, so this may not be, you might want to watch what you ask for. How may I serve? That's the question that like opens the floodgates for evolving, for expansion, for things to speed up. So for me, with doing this for many, many years, and when I started out doing this, I'm one of those people that there wasn't very many books, and there wasn't necessarily Google. I signed up for Facebook actually the day after 9/11. That's how old I am. So the information wasn't there. So for me, this is a time where I focus on my spiritual evolution. I don't focus on I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to exercise. I focus on help me move on this path towards enlightenment, towards source, towards my purpose. So because it is such a spiritual portal, my suggestion is to try to make it more in line with that. But you can put whatever intention you want. It is a portal that is open for a few weeks. It is the strongest on 8/8. However, it is open for a few weeks. I believe this is it. The 14th is our last supermoon for the year. The moon is extremely powerful and brings a lot of more energies than I think we recognize. So you can let me know if you want to know something else, Michelle.
I actually have a question. How do you access the portal? Just through meditation? Is it in a specific meditation?
Yeah, I forget who I was listening to the other day, and I think it was listening to just somebody talk about Course in Miracles. The key to enlightenment is imagination. It's basically what they were saying. It's a quote, but I can't remember the quote, so I don't want to say it. But that is the key to enlightenment. That is the key to healing. It's the key to manifesting. It is the key. And one of my favorite phrases is Dr. Seuss's phrase, where he says that if you have imagination, it can take you anywhere. You know, just jump in the book and then read the book, and it takes you wherever you need to go. Well, what writes the book? Imagination. So it is the key. Your visualization is the key. It's just like Joe Dispenza's, a lot of his work, it's all imagination. It's different brain states, but however, it's all imagination. It's imagining yourself healed and then feeling that. So thoughts are what, you put the thought out, but the feeling is what is the magnetizer, what brings it to you. So I imagine the portal. You can imagine it however you want. I actually imagine it as like this glowing, golden, shimmery portal. That's how I imagine it. It's a very powerful one. So I put lots of shimmers and everything around it. And to me, that's fun because if I can be in fairyland, I'm in my happy place. So, but really, you can imagine it as a crystal that you walk through. You can imagine it as a circle. You can imagine it as an arc. But I actually imagine a portal, and then I actually imagine walking through. And as I'm walking through, that cleanses my energy to the purest intentions. And then I go in and I decide what I want to bring to me without ego. So that's the trick is I'm not doing it like, oh, make me this famous singer, which I would never be because I want a big house. That's not what I'm doing. So you want your intentions to be pure and the highest good for you and for those that you are supposed to serve and help. Because the ultimate goal here is to learn love, to learn unconditional love, and then to teach and serve. That is everybody's goal in one way or another.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, April.
Thank
Does
you,
that help?
April.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
You know, Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it not imagination or visualization, but he calls it mental rehearsals. He does not like the word visualization. He calls it mental rehearsal. So I know there's a testimony of somebody that had Parkinson's, and this woman may be 65, 70 years old, and she was like wheelchair ridden. And what she did was her daughter, when she had the Parkinson's to the point that she was in a wheelchair, she put like about I told Kishori about this, right? Like 5 foot images of her, like maybe going camping, image of her like holding her grandbaby, um, image of her like being mobile, right? And that's what she mentally rehearsed for hours together, like looked at the picture. And that's what so a lot of people seem to not know how to draw that experience in the present moment, and that is the intention. It has to do not so much as, oh, I sent the thought out. It's more the intention behind the thought, right, April? It's the intention. Like you have to intend that you're in a wheelchair, but you're going to walk. You're in a wheelchair, but you are going to hold your grandbaby and be able to stand up. And then they show this, she does a testimony standing up, and she's like walking, she's like normal. She's gotten out of a wheelchair, and she's gotten rid of her Parkinson's at her age. So that's what it is. And like Dr. Joe Dispenza, we were just having this conversations about genes. And the moment April said it may be the genes, and Dr. Joe Dispenza's voice is going in my head, going, no, the environment signals your genes. So change your environment. It's not the genes that control you. You can signal your genes. That's called the what he calls upregulating his genes, right? You're downregulating your genes by how you're thinking and believing. What you're thinking and believing, you're downregulating it. And you have to upregulate your genes so that no matter what disease you have, you're going to overcome it. You're going to signal new genes. So he calls it his big three. You're overcoming your body, you're overcoming your environment, and you're overcoming time. Those big three. And the body is where the body is always taking us into the past, right? Bringing us to past or future. We are thinking about making the coffee or going into work. We are in the shower and we're thinking of what we're going to dress. We're getting dressed and we're thinking about getting in the car and getting into that horrendous traffic. So we are always in the future moment. So training our body to be in the generous present moment. So overcoming our body, overcoming environment, which is not dealing with the same people all the time, like not having the same type of relationship with the people that we have, like not thinking of the same emotions, like coworkers, right? like you're dealing with the same coworkers, changing our relationship with that coworker if he had, or even relatives. So that's how you change your environment. And
Is it also that's why it's so important to actually physically remove yourself sometimes from the toxic environment that brings you down? That
no, he
no?
no, he just wants us to train our body to experience those emotions of, like, recondition our body to always experience what Caesar always talks about, right? He talks about being in that elevated emotion of gratitude, elevated emotion of loving kindness, love for life, right? A zest for life. I'm excited about my next moment. I'm excited about this moment, and I'm excited no matter what it is, whatever the universe surprise me, whatever the next moment is, but
So
I'm
the
excited about it.
environment, yeah, so the environment, what you're talking about, it's not the physical environment, but emotional environment.
How you're emotionally dealing with the environment. The environment can be the same, but you're retraining your body to learn not to respond to the environment the same way you used to. Because if he were to keep responding to the environment like our past, he says you're just taking your past and you're putting your future on top of the past, and your future is becoming your past. You're just recreating, co-creating. That's the default program. You're co-creating your past into the future. And that's why people don't heal from chronic illness, because they have not changed their
Oh my goodness, you
emotions.
are so correct, because it brought me this the story that I don't know if what Eckhart was or one of the other spiritualities that I listened to, about the newcomer to the town sitting at the bar and meeting an older guy there and asking, how is this town? Are people nice here? And the older guy asked him, how was your old town? Oh, people were horrible. So much, I had to leave. And he said, it's just like that here. And then the other guy came smiling, saying, I just came to this town. Tell me, did you live here? He's like, yeah, all my life. How are people there? And he said, how are people, when you left? Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I just want to, travel. It's like, just like that. I just hear the people. So that's the story.
Yes. So it's like the same thing that Abraham Hicks says, right? Who's dominating the frequency in the room? And that's why and the whole thing is because of our energy centers not being aligned, right? That's why we do so much of the blessings of the energy centers meditation,
Mhm.
because if we are stuck in the first three energy centers, and April taught in her workshop too, right? Move to the heart center or move above, because as long as we are stuck in energy center 1, 2, 3, one is consumption, right? Either you're doing physical intimacy consumption, eating consumption, drinking consumption. Number one is that. Number two is, I think, guilt and shame. Number
Yeah.
three is anger. As long as we are in those emotions of the past, and that's why Eckhart's first four chapters heal us of that, right? He says, don't hold resentment is an emotion that strengthens your ego, what have you. Each of these, right? No complaining. If we learn and apply the first four chapters and get rid of our pain body, finish the first 5 chapters of a new earth, we would be healed. The same thing, what Dr. Joe Dispenza is healing us from. But he's using a technique. Eckhart is just saying words. Dr. Joe Dispenza has the blessings of the energy center technique to heal us of our guilt and shame and anger and frustration and discontent and whatever our uh, emotions of the past that the body will pull us into. But we can overcome our genes. That's what we are here for. That's what we're gonna.
That's miracles. That's miracles. Every one of those is a miracle, truly overcoming.
And each one of us has that mystical in us, that mystic in us. We are each a healer. That's why he calls us, each one of us is an unlimited genius, right? And he says, as soon as he walks in, he says, "How are you doing, geniuses?" Turn around to each other and say that you are an unlimited genius. So, okay, Francesca, let's talk about the Lionsgate portal. If you have some information and the question, and then we'll move to Caesar. Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you,
everybody.
April. Good
Is my
evening,
volume okay? Hi, good evening, everybody.
Yes, yes, it is okay. Thank you.
Hi. Just like April, I'm not an astrologist or anything like that. I've, personally used the portals, like in this case, the Lionsgate portal, which is, I feel it's one of the biggest portal because it's the one that I personally feel energetically attuned to. I mean, different times of the year, we have different portals that open up, and based on where we're at in our journey, that's how we can feel, our connection to that portal. And I usually use portals for my own spiritual journey because I have a mission, and so I use it to renew my intentions and so feelings of that intentions, thoughts of my intention in relation to my purpose. So everything is that I think about, it's all around in relation to me serving and fulfilling that purpose. And with regards to tapping in, normally I would do ceremony of some kind, and again, it depends on which ceremony I'm called to do. For all of them, actually, in particularly the Lionsgate, this time I haven't done a ceremony as yet, but normally it involves dance. And the reason why I dance, I dance, I chant, and I sing, whatever it is, and the purpose of doing that is so that energetically I can tap in, I can raise my vibration so that whatever it is that I want to manifest, I'm manifesting from that higher state without the involvement of my mind. That ego mind directing it or anything like that, So the key in relation to like manifesting anything, and this will probably lead into this question that was asked today, is, I always say we can't fool the universe, we tap in. So the key is to, I don't know if I can describe this in with physical word, but there's an energetic that feel when you enter that field. Like I always say, for me it's easy because I say, you'll always know, and I know it's easy for me to say that because I'm used to it. I know what that feels like. I can tell the difference when I'm in the higher vibration versus when I'm like fluctuating or flopping around, which I also do, right? And so the key is to raise your frequency as high as you possibly can, and that's what I do. And I use specific music, for example, for that, right? Like solfeggio frequencies are beautiful. Sometimes, depending on the time of the year, I listen to Gregorian chants, and I have like different Latin chants and stuff like that. I have mantras and sutras. I have the most amazing playlists, and I have multiple lists because I've been building them, collecting them, making playlists throughout my journey as I evolve, whenever I receive, because I felt like even YouTube synchronized with my journey because it seemed to know what it is that I need or what it is to play next or to present next kind of thing. So I have this collection of mantras and sutras and high frequency music and so forth. And so I strategically use them, different times of the year. And I use them to help me to tap into that higher frequency so that I can manifest, and like I said, I haven't done any ceremony yet for this Lionsgate portal. And the reason being, I've been feeling like personally myself, I've been feeling that need to just be. And I'm not too sure why, or I'm not interested, I don't want to analyze it because, the old version of myself would want to analyze it. And instead, I'm kind of more almost quiet in a way, because there's just so much going on outside of me, that's trying to draw my attention, in different direction. And for me to not get pulled, and have this external world control my vibration, my frequency, my presence, or anything like that, is for me to stay present, for me to stay still and just be the observer, even though I have 50 questions. Sometimes maybe I have 50 questions, or basically it's just to stay still. So right now I've just been in that state of stillness, because there's a lot of big decisions that needs to be made with regards to my mom, who is in palliative care. And I'm looking at it from the spiritual level, and I'm looking at it through those lens. My God, it's so different from the non-spiritual lens, and the people that I'm communicating with, my siblings, are not looking at it from that spiritual lens. They can't see the depth or the level that I can see. And as a result of that, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have the conversation. That means, not having that conversation. Otherwise, it will result in conflict, right? And misunderstanding and so forth. And so I've been in this quiet state because of, that which I'm trying to, I don't want to say I'm trying to navigate, because to be really honest, there is no trying really involved for me at this point. It's just a matter of me, choosing, right? Choosing and going to that, going into that question that was asked, is just a matter, comes down to me choosing, from that state of pure awareness, how is it that I'm going to show up? And not just how I'm going to show up, how is it that I'm where, basically, I'm not even sure if I know how to word this, but basically I'm just staying present, and it's a choice, rather than allow my external energies to be pulled in different direction. And it's a direction of conflict, for example. I'm saying, well, when you're communicating this, which is what I love, I think it was Michelle that mentioned that this is my favorite way to diffuse I think it's the most powerful diffuser, by saying, what you're communicating, this is how it makes me feel. And this is how my mind is interpreting what you're saying. I always tell that to the person, whatever it is they're telling me, no matter what they're telling me, I'm like, you know what? This is how I'm feeling when you're sharing that. And this is how I'm hearing what you're sharing. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, right? Because not only does it connect, it tells that person that, hey, I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you, and this is how I'm interpreting what it is you're saying. And if I'm wrong, please, I give them the opportunity to reiterate what it is that they're trying to share. And so the conversation always, that automatically lifts the conversation automatically to a higher frequency, right? So it's, in relation to the question, where it says that when there's a conflict, like in terms of disagreement, right? So it says here, if you try to communicate and fix things, are you in the mental? So reading through the whole question, it seems like whoever's asking the question, they're thinking there's a difference between the mental and the ego, like the mental and the egoic state of mind, and there isn't. So first of all, it seems like, whoever's asking the question, they're thinking of this as two separate entities. So to answer the first part of the question, going back to when I said that, we can't fool the universe because it can feel us. Now, everything is energy. So I'm going to a little transmission here. So everything is energy. And when we're in a room with somebody, whether we're in that room with one person, 10 people, doesn't matter. Based on where we're at, our frequency, our vibration, that's what everybody or every person in that room will feel. So we're magnetic beings. So energetically, they can feel us before we even speak, or we can feel them before they even speak. So for example, if you're in a conversation and there's a disagreement that comes up in that conversation, you might be, thinking in your mind that, yes, you're in your highest, conscious state and blah, 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 whatever, the egoic state of mind is verbalizing at that time in your head, whatever record is playing in your head. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where you're at, because your frequency, that vibration is determined based on your pain body and all of the work you did or didn't do. So for example, if you're not doing your inner work, you can't walk into a space and go, okay, I'm having a wonderful day, I'm vibrating in my highest frequency. Yeah, those are all thoughts in your mind, and it's great. And your thoughts create your reality and so forth. But at the end of the day, the truth is, if you're not feeling that, and the universe can feel you even when you can't feel it. If you're not feeling that, if all of you isn't emanating that vibration, then what people are going to feel is who you truly are, where you're truly at in any given moment of time. So this is why I say everything is energy, right? Because in any conversation, you can be energetically felt before you even speak words. So in relation to disagreements, no matter what you're saying, even if what you're saying is carefully orchestrated, no matter what you're saying, that person can feel you because they have a pain body, you have a pain body, and they can feel you more than they can hear you. And this is something that's happened to me a lot in the past, and I've learned it, I guess I want to say the hard way from it happening, but it came with practice, right? Because once I became aware of this, I was like, oh my goodness, how do I change this? And it's like, God, I got to go deeper. I have to do more inner work. I need to dissolve whatever pain body is behind this reaction of mine, or that's behind this trigger. I have to fully dissolve it. And when that's dissolved, then my frequency, my vibration automatically changes. And it changes the context of that conversation as well, because all of a sudden I'm going from being, triggerable or wanting to solve something right away to like, thank you for sharing how you feel. I hear you, I see you. This is how I'm interpreting what it is that you're saying. So now I'm coming from a completely, even my communication automatically changes, right? And so I'm coming from a different state, from that state of presence, with not just with with myself and the conversation, but I'm listening to what it is that person is saying, and I'm sharing from that state of presence. And then they know that I hear them. So no matter what I say, the chance of them becoming triggered is very small. And then sometimes my egoic state of mind feels mischievous, I'm not going to lie. And it giggles, that's the sadistic, I guess I call it the sadistic ego, and it would, and it gets a little mischievous, and it would want to, do something stupid by saying something that I know would, I guess, stir the pot, for the lack of a better word. I'm guilty of that too. I've done that. That's another version of myself. We all have these different versions of ourselves. It's why I love Kali Ma, the deity with the necklace, that beautiful necklace with all of the heads. And I'm like, it's so interesting because she's always the deity that's most misinterpreted, because, when people see her, they're like, oh my God, yeah, she's fierce. It means you should kill. And yeah, she is fierce. But it doesn't really involve killing the way we think of killing. This is about dissolving. I say her necklace, it's all the heads of our egoic state of mind, all the different versions of ourselves. That's what that necklace is, right? And whenever we dissolve a karmic imprint, or, we dissolve a pain body or something, that's what that represents, right? And so, I can go so deep with this, but to answer that question, to know the difference, whether you are in the egoic state of mind or not. So for myself, or for anybody else, I always suggest is, when you're listening to somebody, first of all, even as they're speaking, you listen. from presence without that analytical mind going and trying to find the answer, you know, all the things that the mind does, right? It means you're actually not listening. And I've had conversation where I've told people, I'm like, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're listening to me, because my sister and I, we do that. She does that to me all the time, you know. She already knows the answer. She's already calculating, you know, but she's, you know, in that controlling mind, right? And I understand. I'm like, you're not listening. You're, you know, you're not being present. And I don't know how to get you to listen to me because I know you're not hearing me, right? And so to be able to tell the difference from myself, pure awareness is what we say in Buddhism. Pure awareness is embodied. And this is something that comes from years of practice, you know, meditation and doing our inner work, you know, because as we evolve, the egoic state of mind evolved, right? And that connection from the head to the heart, the inner work journey from the head to the heart is moving out of the mind and moving into that heart. And like April said, the Heart Math Institute have proven it now scientifically that the heart is more powerful than the brain, right? And so when we tap into that heart, we get to experience the intelligence of not the heart, but like also it connects us, right? That's what connects us, that intelligence, to the quantum field, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, right? It connects us to, you know, when we breathe in and out, that space in between the breath, you know, we call it God, we call it source, you know, presence, right? That beautiful space, that in the intelligence comes through that space, the wisdom pours through that portal. That's the portal. Lionsgate portal, there you go, you know. And when you connected that portal, during the Lionsgate portal opening, oh my God, you can manifest anything, right? But that portal, and it's from that state of pure awareness is when you have the ability to always know. And I always tell this to my clients, you know, my students, I'm like, you know what, believe me, you will know, you will always know the difference when you're in your higher self, highest state, when you're speaking from that state of mind versus when you're communicating from your egoic state of mind, because the egoic state of mind will be anxious. It wants to solve the problem. It wants to do it right away. It thinks there is a problem, for starters. There is your first sign, right? You know, so it's not even listening to what the person is saying. It's already determined that this is a problem, not because it's a problem, but because it felt triggered. You felt triggered, right? So again, that state of pure awareness equips you with the ability to be able to tell, you know, whether you're listening from your higher self or from that egoic state of mind. In the egoic state of mind, there's always be some form of monkey involved. And I say monkey because it's noise, right? There'll always be some sort of chatter, you know, or a desire. This is the beautiful one, the desire to want to address this right away. And that alone is that to me is the first sign that you need to take a breath, step back and wait. It's okay to say, you know what? I don't think, you know, I want to talk about this right now, or, you know, I actually don't have an answer for you right now, or I have to go meditate on this. It's okay to say all of those things, you know, or it's also okay. Like for me, if I'm feeling triggered, I'm going to go, you know what? I don't think if it's somebody that I feel they're not hearing me, I would say something like, you know, I don't think you're hearing me fully. And I'm feeling triggered because I'm feeling frustrated because I'm, you know, I'm repeating myself. And so you're not hearing me. So as a result of that, can we talk about this another time? I just need to go take a breather, you know, bring my energy back, you know, to center, you know, to presence, and then I can call you back or something, you know, along those lines. So there are many, many ways to handle any type of, you know, disagreement and conflict. The bottom line is you are the one who gets to choose. You always get to choose how to, because, you know, again, we have this habit, one of the habits that we were deeply conditioned into. And it's sad because it's the, you know, our very own mind that did this to us, not the external, is the habit of dismissing our intuition, dismissing our higher self. Because I always tell this to everybody, we always know when we're doing something right or wrong. We always know the difference between right or wrong, no matter no matter how much trauma you have, no matter what story we have, we always know. The issue is we've been conditioned to like automatically dismiss. We're so used to dismissing that, you shouldn't do this, but we do it anyways, right? Like all the time, right? And again, as part of that, raising our vibration or our frequency is, retraining ourselves to listen more to that intuition, trusting, even if you don't know what the answer is going to be, right? Keep leaning into it, keep trusting in that process, keep, even if you don't, like, not knowing is one of those, the Zen koans in Buddhism, right? You keep leaning into that not knowing and trusting in the process. The problem arises when we think we know everything, right? And sadly, there's so much information out there. It's easy to get carried away with that, thinking we know everything, but we were actually, young on the journey. Very humbly, I'm saying this, and I've learned this the hard way too. So I'm just looking at the question to see, I think there was another part in the question in relation to communication. Oh, when the communication is badly interpreted, should I not try to fix things and accept the disharmony of the present moment? Sometimes, that might be the choice. If something is being misinterpreted, like I said, there were times when, the communication I noticed, I guess isn't going, isn't in the right frequency. And I feel like, oh my goodness, this conversation actually just recently happened. The conversation was happening, what I refer to as the lower realms. I'm like, oh my God, this conversation is happening in the lower realms. This is not, where I want this conversation to happen. And I know by having this conversation in the lower realms, I'm feeding that energy. And it's something that I've personally worked really hard to not, to disconnect from those old, frequencies, because the less we feed them, the less they will grow. They start to starve out, right? Those entities. And so, it meant, even though, now the old version of me, my egoic state of mind, would have wanted to have the conversation and, come to some sort of a whatever it is that it would have wanted at the time. But instead I said, you know what? I choose to stand in my power, but I didn't say that. What I did was I was like, first of all, I recognized that this conversation was happening in the lower realms. And I thought, no, I'm going to stand in my power and I'm going to stop the conversation. But like, I did it really nicely, energetically, right? And I said, look, I'm so sorry that, I can't have this conversation right now, because I can tell that the questions you're asking, the egoic state of mind is trying to, create a problem where there is no problem. Like it's trying to cause a fight to happen. And so rather than allow that to happen, I'm not going to have this conversation. I can't have this conversation anymore. Just recognize, I just wanted to share that this is what's happening. This is what I'm aware of is happening. And I know that if I have the conversation, it will cause a fight. And we're in such a beautiful place right now. I know my intentions are pure. Your intentions are pure. I know we love each other and there is no reason to fight. So let's stay with that. Right. And the person was like, okay, and then the next day when they saw me, they teased me about my ego, right? They're like, oh, did your ego just do that? I'm like, yep. So we were kind of actually able to laugh about it afterwards. So yeah, sometimes you may have to, that might mean walking away, I guess, what you say, from that conversation, because it's the same as walking away in relationships. It's the same as walking away from that conflict, from that fight, because you recognize that because you're on this journey, you're in this path, and you can recognize now little, here and there when the egoic state of mind is arising, knowing it's the troublemaker, and And it has this, what I call the insatiable appetite, at least in the beginning of the journey anyways, right? It wants to stay in control. It wants to be right. It wants to win. And so it has all of these disguises. And like I said, look at Kali Man, all her necklace and all the heads. And you will see everything from the multiple personality, to the sadistic ego, to like you name it. It will wear whatever, disguise it needs to wear in order to derail you from the path, right? And in Buddhism, they said, the ego will fight you to the death. And sadly, in cases of suicide and so forth, I've seen that, happen. It does, it finds different ways to do that. So I don't know, hopefully I answered the question. I'm not too sure if I'm missing any part of it. Did I get the whole question?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
I know it's like a lot of questions in the question, so yeah.
Thank you so much, Francesca. I just wanted to read Lakshmi found the actual poem that Patricia was referring to. And what it says is, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Beautiful, right? So a couple of things, Francesca. Your mother in palliative care, one of the things that spiritually, if you're able to communicate to your siblings, is, which I had to with my mom who was in a coma, that having the medical institutions, their job, because they take the whatever Hippocratic oath is to keep the person alive. And they will put as many tubes, as many machines, as many things. But I learned from Sadhguru that the more you put the tubes, like we may think that the person is not suffering, but the more we intubate them, the more we push all that, the soul is suffering. So
Yeah.
you may want to have that balance. Yeah. So a person who's not spiritually awakened and understands that the soul is eternal, right? Like this is eternal. They'll want to keep that physical body alive. Like they don't want to lose the physical body, right? So at any cost, they'll try to do that. And then they use the assistance of the science, because the doctor will say, oh, let this person be hospitalized, or let this person be in assisted living or palliative care and be under those tubes, right? But the more tubes we intubate them with, it's very jarring to the soul. So if you can communicate that, like with kindness to your siblings, that's all.
So
And then disconnect from them, like detach
I
after you
was
say that.
I was just going to say this whole thing is pushing me to go really deep, actually, and maybe this discussion will benefit somebody actually, and probably the person asking this question. So what's happening with my mom is the opposite of what you just said. So the hospital, they've disconnected all the tubes. They're not doing any more testing or anything like that, because they said that because the cancer has infected the entire lining of her brain, that
Mhm.
she is going to die.
Mhm.
So they said there is nothing they can do. They have no medicines, no nothing that they can give to bring her back from that, to cure that type of
Right.
cancer.
Right.
So as a result of that, they've moved her like to a different floor, right? And of course, all the nurses went on strike in Toronto, so that just made everything worse. So there is, shortages in the hospital and so forth. And so she's on a different floor right now. So what's happening with her? They're giving her the pain medication, of course, to keep her comfortable, and make sure she's not in pain. But apparently she is still in physical pain, and not just physical pain. She's going through, so her death process that she's going through right now is very extreme. It's intense because she's moving through suffering, even in this death phase of her journey. She's feeling a lot of physical pain. She's feeling a lot of discomfort. her mind is, so it comes and it goes. And when it comes, it's really making it difficult for her. So it's like she is in hell. And actually, this is probably a great example to use in relation to when we don't do our journey, our inner work journey, from our head to our heart, and we live our life a certain way, our death happens a certain way, sadly. And for my mom, even though, when you hear her speak, it's like, she's experienced enlightenment, she's in this beautiful, like before all of this happened, like I experienced the divine, being that she is, this beautiful being that have grown so much right now as she's moving through her death phase, because she knew nothing about inner work, didn't do any of the stuff that we're doing right now. Her death phase that she's moving through is excruciating. So she wants to give up. She keeps asking everybody to, like, I want to die. I don't want to be here. So they've moved her from one room to another. So the first room she was in, it was too noisy. The person that she was with, there were 2 people per room. And so it was hell for her to experience that. So then they got her moved to another room, and it's a different kind of hell because the other person is going through their hell. And so she's experienced, no matter which room it seems, either of these rooms, she's going through some sort of a personal hell because the lady that she's with right now is screaming all the time. So that's causing her, re-traumatizing her, because it's trauma that she's had to experience, from childhood. And so this whole process, it seems like it's, for lack of a better word, miserable for her. Like it's really awful, that she's going through this, and it's really difficult, I understand, to witness this. At the same time, here where it gets complicated is, like you said, my sisters are saying, mom keeps saying she wants to die, she doesn't want to be here anymore, and she's saying if anything happens to her, don't resuscitate her, let her go. Maybe they should kill her. She's saying they should inject her or something. And I'm like, you know what? For myself, looking at this spiritually, and it was difficult. I told my sister, I said, first of all, you guys have blocked me from even being involved in the process, and to interfere with anything. And so I withdrew myself, like energetically. I'm not interfering. I'm just praying for, whatever process my mom is going through, that God have mercy, and I've exchanged my merit. So whatever merit I've, collected from this journey, gifted to her, so that her process is as, easy and with ease and grace and so forth. Like that's the part I'm doing from here. I've let her go, like when I was at, the retreat, right? And so they're trying to, to get me to agree with them that, maybe we should move her into old age homes, a seniors home, and because she's, experiencing what they seem like, what dementia, because of the impact of the cancer on the brain and so forth, that because she's suffering, so of course they're seeing she is suffering, and she is suffering, horrifically. They think that maybe they should pull the plug. And I'm like, karmically, that's not a decision I can make, because now I'm interfering with karma. I'm interfering with God's work. This is mom's journey. What mom is experiencing right now, as much as I love her and as hard as it is based on how she's lived her life. This is part of the process, and having experienced death myself and multiple forms of death over and over again, I'm aware there are times when we're going through that process. Yes, we wish we would die, and we're praying and we're like, oh my God, I can't do this. I give up. My God, I've had conversation with the universe where I've sworn at it, literally I've used the F-bomb, and I'm like, you know what, that's it. Darkness, you win, I give up, and I threw my hands up, and I'm like, so I understand, it becomes difficult, right? But, again, I also understand the importance of surrendering and trusting in that process. And that's what I've done every single time, kicking and screaming on my knees, crawling, however, somehow, I move to that presence. I sit with it, I embrace it, and I get through it, right? I'm able to move through that darkness, that dark night of the soul, right? And I
But-
evolve and I learn. So
Don't you see the compassion in pulling the plug?
I do, but here is what I also see,
Mhm.
that that's something that comes from our mind. That's a decision that comes from our mind and what we think we should do.
No, it doesn't come
Right?
from your mind, because if that soul were to want to live, that body would heal. Just like Anita Murjani, right? Her spirit can leave and come back, and the whole cancer can be healed, right?
Yes.
Or-
And
or the
she's the
soul-
one I'm thinking of, right? Because
or the soul can leave the body. It may be time for you are, by saying I don't want to make the decision to pull the plug, because we had to do it for our mom. She had a
Yeah.
brain aneurysm, exactly almost the same, in coma, right? And she's just on life support. I told my brother, take her off life support. You're torturing that soul. You're torturing the soul by keeping her, and the soul is telling you that, oh, I don't want
Yes.
to be with this other person in this room. No matter where that soul is going, the soul is
Yeah.
getting tortured. Why are
Yeah.
you all torturing that soul? That
So
soul,
she's
once you-
not on
once you-
life support, though. That's the thing.
So when,
So
what do they mean by saying we need to pull the plug?
they're saying, they're saying that maybe they should give her an injection. My sisters, that's what they're talking about. And they're talking about this with my ex. He's a doctor. And this is what he's saying, that she's being tortured and she's not happy. And she was already had a very difficult life. And maybe you guys should consider making the decision that, to do
The
that.
compassionate,
Yeah, and I'm like,
what is it called? Taking
you know what? I didn't ask them what it's called, because I kind of just rejected the whole, I'm like, now you guys are interfering with karma, because I believe when it's mom's time, her soul, it will naturally go. It's a natural process that happens, right?
yeah.
And I understand, like, she's, unhappy, she's suffering, I offered, I said, I can come and help. I can help walk her through the death realms, right? I walked with my dad through that death realms as far as I could go, right? I'm like, I could help coach her, like walk her through that process,
Yeah,
so that she moves
wouldn't
through it with
say-
ease and grace. But they're,
Right.
yeah.
I wouldn't say about the injection. I'm just saying if it is just life support. What do you all say, April and Caesar?
I would love it.
April, you have something for Francesca?
I mean, I think Eckhart even said that if, you have your suffering, and if you don't have it in this lifetime, you'll have it at death. He also said that, right? And if she's not on life support or whatever, and the hospital has said, this is all we can do, is there a possibility of it turning around? Sure, that is a possibility. We have, Joe Dispenza teaches us that. Anita Morgiani teaches us that. But what I can tell you is that now there are some people that are doing the assisted suicides. But what I can tell you is that no one dies before their time, right? And that doesn't make the process of losing somebody easier. And what I found was there was a point where someone in my family was going to have a baby. And within a couple months, they were not going to have a baby. There has something happened with the pregnancy. And I was amazed at myself when that happened, that I was sad. They had only been pregnant a few months before there was complications. And I was like, why am I sad? This is only a pregnancy for a couple months. But what I realized is that when we have somebody come into our life, or our children's friends, or our neighbor, or an animal, what we do is, and it's so funny because we harden our hearts because we get hurt, right? And we think that we're not going to love people and we're not going to share and all that, but the heart has this amazing ability to make space forever. So it made a space for that baby that was coming already within 2 months. And when the baby wasn't coming, I had an open space that baby was supposed to fill. So it's the same thing when we lose a loved one. We don't want to fill that empty space with something else. We don't want to feel that empty space. So we do everything in our power to keep them. I don't necessarily have like a true opinion on like the assisted suicide thing. I believe that when the person's time to go is the time to go. The soul has already set that. I don't know that we should interfere with that. But again, I'm not looking for to make an opinion on that or to have any political stance on that. But I do know that your soul has already picked what is going to happen, how long it's going to happen. And that in itself is also part of the journey. That's part of the process of being here on earth. So if it was me, I probably wouldn't interfere. However, I would also, it's okay to allow someone to have their time and their day, and that does not mean that you don't love them.
Thank
Not
you.
fighting for their death or not fighting for them to live, or you must give them every medical treatment under the sun, doesn't mean you don't love them. It means it's their time to go. That's what it means.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And that's exactly how I feel about the situation in relation to my mom. And as hard as it is, to watch and, to witness. And I feel in my heart, and I know in my heart that I shouldn't interfere. And
But don't take
there
that
is
as a
also
rejection.
no, it's not a rejection. There's the
Right.
possibility as well too. Who knows, right? Like you said, we've seen it happen. It's happened with myself when Anita Morjani. Who knows, right? And so I'm guided
And
not
we
to
see death
interfere.
incorrectly. Death is a gift.
Yes.
Death is a gift. It is
Yes.
your golden ticket to be able to go back and to regroup, recenter, get back to source. It's a gift.
Absolutely.
It's not a punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Thank you, Francesca. And I agree, Kali, according to, I think Sadhguru may have said this, that, the fierceness of Kali is actually her intense presence.
Yes,
So
her power.
it's not that she's violent. So
No.
I agree with you. Thank you for that. Caesar, you want to wrap it up? I know it's been a very long night, but you saw the two questions. One is about the Lionsgate portal, and the second one is about the actual question was a very long passage where they said, in case of a disagreement with someone, if you try to communicate and fix things, are you in the mental? And you heard what Francesca said. So if you have any piece of advice for Francesca as well, thank you.
Sure. We'll start with Francesca. I liked what April said. Allow things to happen. Part of our purpose is to lessen the suffering of others. So if there's physical suffering and it's obvious, and that opportunity presents itself, and it's if your mother is conscious enough to make that decision, so that's strictly. But the right answers will come at the right moment, and we'll leave that there. In case of a disagreement with somebody, if you try to communicate and fix things, are you in the mental and is the ego manifesting? Absolutely, because if the perception that you are trying to fix things, meaning you have a perception that something is broken in the moment. And we know that's just probably not the case. So I would say, yes, that's ego manifesting. Now, if it was worded a little different and said, to try to help somebody instead of try to fix things, that might have, I don't know, led me to a different answer. But let's see, at the end of it, and accept the disharmony of the present moment. I'm not relating with that. If you are honoring your presence power, we know there are no problems in the present moment. Things may be a little uncomfortable, but you can still find gratitude in the contrast, whatever it may be. So communicate, be leaded by ego and mental when making decisions. How can you tell the difference between lower self-fear and higher self-guidance? What feels right? Any decisions made would be out of compassion. Anything decisions made out of fear obviously would be the lower self, the ego creeping in. And as far as the Lionsgate, April hit that one out of the park. I'm not very familiar with it. However, I can tell you 2 days ago, I woke up and the whole day was just a barrage of manifestations from the moment I woke up. And then I looked at on my phone and I did the math, and 2 days ago was the 8th, and that is the day of the Lionsgate. That's when the energy is most powerful for manifestation, I believe. Isn't that what you said, April? Around the 8th? Yeah, and it was crazy because that was I was verbalizing a lot of the manifestations, and they were like flying all over the place. It was great. And I said, the energy is pretty awesome today. So it was cool. But I don't have any more information on the Lionsgate. I'm just grateful to be here. Francesca, I wish you and your mother the best. In our thoughts for sure. And that's it. That's it. It's been a very long day. I'm very tired. Grateful to be here, everybody. Thanks for filling me in on the Lionsgate, April. I was kind of wondering about that, but it makes good sense now.
For the Lions, like I said, it's not my thing. One of the people that I like to listen to about the Lionsgate is Diana Cooper and Tim Wilde.
Ooh, Tim Wilde, right on.
Michael Murdad is also he's pretty aware of it too.
Who?
His name is Michael Murdad.
That's who Michelle, I think, mentioned.
Yeah. But Diana Cooper and Tim Wilde are very knowledgeable about the Lionsgate.
Put that on my list for the upcoming week.
Make sure when you have time on the weekend, like do more meditation. Ask who should we serve, right?
Yeah, so the intention is for source to come through you. However that means. Maybe that means that this year source is going to come through you because you're going to drink more lemon water, right? Or you're going to meditate more, or you're going to just make more time for yourself, because then that will go forward. So it's that kind of intention. We're not intending to get a new house or a truck or blah, blah, blah. It's a spiritual intention. That's the way that I see this portal. You can see it a different way, but I see it for that reason. I can manifest the rest of my life, but this one I use purposely for enlightenment, involvement, soul growth.
Beautiful.
And the reason why it's called Lion's Gate is because we are still under the lion sign in the astronomy.
So it's Leo, yes, but it's also it has a lot to do with the rising of Sirius.
And Sirius is the super sun that our sun
Central
revolves
sun.
around.
The central.
It's,
the
it is
central
said
sun.
that it's the brightest, absolutely brightest star on our sky, Sirius.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like when you start looking into Sirius and things, you start looking into like Atlantis, Palladians, Achurians, Syrians. You start looking into that kind of thing.
And
So it
what are
keeps
those?
going.
I know Michael Bernard talks about the
Numerians.
Atlantis.
Those are civilizations that were here before us. Not necessarily all of them here on Earth, but other planets that were here before us. They're part of our creation, some of them. And then they're also light beings that help us. But it is the central sun is beyond our regular sun. So when you go up to your source, you're going past our sun, our regular sun, our power source. We're going past that. And these are higher level beings, higher conscious beings. They're not in 3D. And so they are there to help us and guide us and help us on our journey. But like I said, there's there's a lot of other teachers that know a lot more than I do. But we are in the sign of Leo, and then you have the star of Sirius that shows up. Matthias de Stefano is another one that if you want, he's just you can't even describe him. It's beyond amazing what he knows. So
He's one of my favorites, actually.
he's just, it's insane what that guy knows. But so I don't, it's not like Francesca was saying, it's not like every single supermoon or every single equinox. So equinoxes are very important too, because it's an alignment at a certain time that only happens a couple times. But I don't follow every single one and say, oh, I have to. You'll see a lot of, sales about the Lion's Gate. But if it's resonating with you, then use it. It is a powerful time. It is a powerful portal that if you are ready for, you may use it.
Thank you so much, April, Caesar, Patricia, Michelle. Sri Lakshmi is with us online, and Francesca. Eternally grateful to all of you for being present. And Caesar, the fact that you made it and you were here present, infinite gratitude that you, no matter how busy your life is, no matter how demanding your life is, you are here for us. That is like heartwarming. It's like, cannot even express my thank you.
Ditto.
Right?
I'm truly humbled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Caesar.
Extremely grateful to be here with all of you guys.
Thank you.
Truly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a spectacular day, everyone. Evening. Much love, many blessings. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Right.